Hey, welcome once again to Lehto's Law. I'm Steve Lehto, and it is a Sunday, 1 o'clock Eastern Time as promised, and we're doing a live feed. We're back to Sundays. Last week, I was not here because I was running the Free Press Marathon. They gave me this because I did, in fact. I finished a long time after I started. Hey, Kevin in New York, time for Wapner. Thanks for catching that. I mentioned it was time for Wapner in a video recently, and somebody said, hey, Judge Wapner hasn't been on People's Court in so long. That joke's not funny. So, Jared, hello from Florida. Hey, Jared, thanks for checking in. Where in Florida? Florida's a big state, my friend. You could be in the Panhandle, or you could be down in the Keys, or you could be on the Gold Coast, as they say. Vehicle Violence is checking in third, and we always appreciate the people who check in near the top of the leaderboard. Of course, there really is no leaderboard here. And like they say on Whose Line Is It Anyways, the points don't count. JP from Columbia, South Carolina, thanks for checking in, my friend. And by the way, JP is one of my new Facebook friends. I mentioned a couple videos back something about Facebook. And I said, I am on Facebook. That's why I know all about the posts that people make of their food and how great their husbands, boyfriends, girlfriends, or wives are. And kind of made a joke about the fact that Facebook is like that. And then I said, you know something? I'm on Facebook. Go ahead and friend me. I've since picked up 300 more friends. So I consider them to all be close and personal friends of mine. But yeah, so if you are on Facebook and you're bored one day, type in Steve Lehto. And if you see my thing pop up, it's the little logo for Lehto's Law. You'll know it's me. Albert Einstein checking in from Connecticut and from beyond the grave. Toronto, Canada. Steve Mack, one of my favorite Canadian friends. And of course, we love Canada. In fact, I mentioned before the marathon ran through Canada. 5 miles of it ran basically through Windsor. And we always have very, very nice and polite spectators along the course in Windsor. And we appreciate each and every one of them. Cheyenne, Wyoming. East Central Wisconsin, Dean Brewski, checking in from East Central Wisconsin. I always like it when you get very specific. I had someone ask me if I'd ever been to Roscommon, and I said, you know, when it comes to southern Michigan, in the northern part, I know more about northwestern lower Michigan than I do about northeastern lower Michigan. And I realized I'd become one of those people splitting hairs that no one else can see. Fort Myers, Florida, Tina, thanks for checking in. Georgia, Lee Doblin. And Blackalak likes the shirt. By the way, yeah, and by the way, I do understand that my shirts aren't always visible on camera when I'm doing the videos, but that's only because I don't want to do that. That would seem kind of weird to do in a video. But the I Do Not Consent shirt, of course, is a running joke on the channel. It's something that sovereign citizens love to yell as they're being tased and having the windows busted out of their cars. And generally speaking, if a police officer's broken out the baton, he's about to break out your window, your consent becomes irrelevant. But the funny part is I had Googled the phrase, I do not consent, just because I wanted to see what would pop up. And I found a link to this on Amazon, of all things. So I thought, well, it's combining two of my favorite things, Amazon and the phrase, I do not consent. So I ordered the shirt. So there you go. What's the difference between a judge and a magistrate, lawyer and a barrister? Well, judges and magistrates are very, very similar, and in many respects, their names are just indications of where they sit in the system. A magistrate generally is the same as a judge, but in a lower court. So a magistrate can usually enter judgments and orders and things of that nature, just like a judge can, but they're sitting in a court of much lower jurisdiction. So at least the ones I've seen, magistrates are often acting as judges in traffic courts, small claims courts, and places like that. And so they actually do wear a robe. You address them as your honor, and everything else they do is like a judge, but they're just not overseeing murder cases or multi-million-dollar trials. As for barrister and lawyer, and also solicitor, in America, people who represent others in court like myself were lawyers. And in the British legal system, they've got barristers and solicitors. And I could be wrong, and I apologize. I'm not one, so I can't tell you. But my understanding is that the barrister is the one who goes into court and makes the arguments, and the solicitor is usually the one who deals with the client and so they've actually split it to where they actually have the legal aspect and the business aspect of the practice of law divided that way. And I understand why they did it. But here in America, if you're a sole practitioner like myself, I have to handle the business side of my practice as well as the legal side. And so I got to, change hats and write checks and go into court and all that stuff. So that's the main distinction there. Are you going to do any more mail call episodes, Rob Marlowe? I will, but I generally get inspired to do the mail call videos when people bring me, or when I go to the post office and I see that I've got a ton of stuff. And I've been to the post office before where they said, Steve, your P.O. box is full, literally. And as a gardener, I got to go either to the auxiliary box or up to the window. And I've actually had them hand me 5 or 6 packages. So I think, I'm like a kid at Christmas. I'm going to videotape that. But most days at my P.O. box, I get 1 or 2 pieces of mail and so on. Someone did ask me about something they had mailed me, and they didn't see me talk about it on air. But a good friend of my channel sent me this pin of a 2.5 ton Army truck in commemoration of the fact that I used to own one. So I mentioned I did not open this one up on a mail call video, but I did mention it in a video live feed, and I also just mentioned it now. So you get double duty there. By the way, we're over 200 people in the room right now, and we are 6 minutes in. So at this rate, someone could graph this for me. But if we gain 200 every 6 minutes, I think we'll hit like 3.9 billion in an hour and a half, give or take. My math is shaky on Sundays. Jacques Peevler, hello from Arkansas, and hello from Michigan, right back at you. In the UK, we also have Queen's Counsel, who are lawyers who have taken silk. They do stuff in even bigger courts and get paid lots more. I was watching Rumpole of the Bailey, and they mentioned someone taking silk or getting the silk or something, and I'm like, what are they talking about? But that makes sense. And in America, if I wanted to argue a case before the U.S. Supreme Court, I could, but I would have to go there and get sworn in. There's a whole process for it. So as of right now, technically, I'm not qualified to argue before the U.S. Supreme Court, but I could get the qualification pretty quickly. But I am right now licensed to practice law in Michigan, all courts, and federal courts in Michigan, both the Eastern and the Western districts. So, Jim Davis, your video buffer's bad, above 480p. I apologize, and I'll admit right now that I'm running this video through a laptop, which is going through a Wi-Fi. It would probably be better if I could cable it directly into the modem. And somewhere down the road, that'll be one of the technical things I will resolve. So, hi, Steve and all from Brian H. Hey, how you doing? Love Michigan, awesome state, from Jacques Peevler. I believe that's the gentleman from down south. Thank you. Come up and visit often. And, we should all get out and check out other parts. We should all go out and check out other parts of the country. I've been to probably half the states, but I've not been up to the Northeast. I haven't been to Maine, Vermont, Connecticut, that section of the country. But I've driven all over the place since I've seen, like I said, probably more than half the states. But it's neat because, there's stuff in Florida, for instance, they haven't got in Michigan. There's stuff in California they haven't got in Florida. So it's good to get out and you'll develop a better understanding of your fellow man if you get out. So JB Weld, on a treadmill, burning calories and watching Steve Lehto. And yes, my friend, you're doing the Lord's work. I should tell you, I bought a Peloton last week. I mentioned I was looking into them a couple weeks ago. I bought one. I've used it every day since I've gotten it. I don't want to become like I'm a disciple for them or something, but I'm telling you right now, I've exercised a lot. I even have a rowing machine I used last winter. That rowing machine is not coming out of the closet this year. It's going to be Peloton from here until the snow melts in the spring. So we'll talk some more about that. I'm actually doing a video about something that occurred to me in the process of getting my Peloton set up. So, Mark Wiener, wonderful to see you live. Are there any laws? I'd like to know what the rest of that sentence says. Good morning, Steve. Cheers from Canada. Adrian checking in. Hey, cool, man. We had a few people checking from Canada already. And so, Kenneth Christ, is this your house or office? Well, I will tell you, and I assume you'll figure this out, that this is a set, meaning I've set this up specifically to shoot videos in front of. So if you were to visit me in my office, you'd see a desk and a phone and a credenza behind me, but you wouldn't see this. Now, I will admit to you that 2 offices back, I actually had these microphones on display across the top of a big credenza. And I actually had more microphones. I've got more that I haven't got out, no room for them. And I had a couple of the cars, but not all the cars. And when people would come into my office and sit down and talk to me, and they say, what's the deal with the microphones? It gave me the opportunity to say, oh, by the way, I used to work in radio. Or they'd ask about the cars, and I go, yeah, I've written a few books. And I think now that I've got the YouTube channel with all the people who watch me on YouTube, and the number of people who are on the internet who Google things, I think many of my clients know that I have a video channel now. But I know that a few years ago, some of my clients would, several months after they hired me, go, oh my gosh, you've got videos on YouTube. I'm like, yeah, I know. I put them there. No, I'm just kidding. But the point is that I don't often come out and say, by the way, I got videos on YouTube. I just, got a legal problem. I talked about your legal problem. And if it comes up, it comes up. But otherwise, I don't normally mention it. Maine is beautiful, especially in the fall. Ryman. Yeah, I've heard that. I would love to get to Maine. I don't know why, but I keep thinking. I've been to Florida. I've been to San Diego, California, of course. And I'd like to get to the Great Northwest, Seattle, that area. And I'd also like to get to Maine, just so I can say I've gotten the 4 corners of the United States. Something very complete about that. You are good at 1080p now. Must be YouTube. Yeah, you never know. JB Weld says you need a catch line like the voice of reason. I've got a few catchphrases. Although most of them I admit I didn't come up with, but I digress. But fact of the matter is there's a few, and some of them are crutches. I should probably stop using them. So, hello from Northern Maine. Hey, we've got somebody from Maine. J-Duds. I hope Northern Maine is as beautiful as I'm imagining it to be, because someday I'll go there and I don't want to be disappointed. Binghamton, New York. Greg Stiles. Where is that in New York State? I'm guessing it's upstate, but then again, isn't everything that's not New York City upstate? I know it's a bad generalization. What's the story with the Titanic behind you? I've mentioned this before. This is a bank made by an artist from Michigan. If you look up Titanic Bank, Michigan, you'll find the guy. I bought that at a gift shop in Traverse City, Michigan. I've referred several people to them. And then someone emailed me about a week ago and said, hey, it looks like they're sold out. But hey, the guy made them. Maybe he'll make some more if there's demand. It's very, very cool. It's very heavy. It's very high quality. And as people have pointed out, it's not to scale. It's not to proportion. The number of screws is incorrect, and the spacing of the stacks are probably also incorrect. But it's more just the image, and it's just, it's a cool rendition of what we imagine the Titanic to have been. So, Tennessee is always good. Greetings to you, sir, from the great state. And hey, Paul, thank you very much. I've been to Tennessee. I've driven through it a few times. I've spent time in Memphis in particular. I am convinced that in Memphis, you could walk into an abandoned building behind a gas station and get better ribs than you can get in any restaurant in Michigan. It's just something about Memphis, and the food there is unbelievable. Donald Norby, should you be running the Marine Corps Marathon? Is that today? That's one I really want to run. I don't actually go out and do destination marathons, and I probably should. But the Marine Corps Marathon is the one that's in Washington, D.C. And as you can imagine, for a marathon to go around landmarks and to run by a bunch of cool stuff, obviously one in D.C. would be cool. And then, of course, it's for a good cause because it supports the Marines. So there you go. We just broke 300 people in the chat. Thank you very much. Glad to see that. Like I said, 14 minutes in. If we keep going this in a straight line graph, let's see, carry that 1.9 billion. We'll see. So I have a brother in Tennessee. I've got 5 brothers, but right now we're all in Michigan, all 600 of us. 6 of us, sorry. I'm looking at somebody saying 300 watching now, and that is correct. Gene Bowdish says, Mr. Carlson's lab, broadcast transmitter repair. He can tell you how he gets his tubes for electronic repair. Gene. And Gene, thank you for the note. I mentioned in a recent video that when I worked in radio, not only did I collect the microphones, but I also had a couple old transmitter tubes. They're really, really cool, big glass tubes. They got all kinds of really need electronics inside of them. Several people sent me links to eBay and pointed out that you can buy anything on eBay. And there are guys selling transmitter tubes on eBay. And I found one or two that are similar to the ones I used to have. So I'm going to pick up a couple of those and stick them back here somewhere. But they're very, very fragile, and they don't balance well. So I got to be careful not to break them, especially if I spend a lot of money on them and I'm just using them as knickknacks. So I just watched your video on the Supreme Court case in Castle Rock and the straining. Made my blood boil. Yeah, you know, one of the things that I talk about on my channel from time to time is how people misunderstand what you're entitled to as an American. And I've mentioned this in several videos, but the Supreme Court of our land has said that the police do not have an affirmative obligation to protect you. It might say to preserve and to serve and protect on the side of their cars, but they don't have to protect you. They have a job to do, but if something goes wrong and they fail in their protection of you, you can't just sue them and say, well, they didn't protect me. And so that's the case called Castle Rock. But the other thing that I think more people are really, confused and befuddled by is that the Supreme Court of the United States has ruled and said that the police can pull you over and even arrest you without telling you why. So the idea that at the side of the road you can demand, why am I being arrested? Why am I being detained? They don't have to tell you if they don't want to. And our Supreme Court has said that. I'm not saying that's right. I'm saying that's the state of the law. So I'm the messenger here. I don't write these laws, and so, that's the Supreme Court interpretation of the laws in the Constitution. And of course, any state would have the right to change its law and require police to inform you why they pulled you over or to inform you why you've been arrested and so on. But as my understanding goes, most states have no such laws on the books. So a police officer can pull you over and you can say, why did I get pulled over? And you can say, I don't have to tell you that. And he can even arrest you. And I think many people think that when they are arrested on television, McGarrett tells Dano, of course, book them. And then when they book them, they always say, before they take them, they always say you're under arrest for, and they tell them. And so people just assume that that's part of the process, almost like Miranda, and it's not. It's not. It's just something that they do in Hollywood because it's good to remind people, by the way, in case you forgot what happened in the first 15 minutes of the show, somebody got killed. Now this guy's being arrested for murder. He's being booked by 5-0. Kevin Haggerty, Lehto's Law Alive. That is, in fact, the title. Has anybody else mentioned what they think that might be a reference to? Because today is specifically ambiguous. DBL Charty, love the Copper Country. So do I. Copper Country, of course, is a reference to the Keweenaw Peninsula in Michigan's Upper Peninsula, about 8, 9, maybe 10 hours north of Detroit across the Mackinac Bridge and to the left. And it's where all the copper mining was centered between the 1870s and the 1920s. For the most part, those are the boom years. The last copper mine actually in that area went out of business in 1968. There was some copper mining since then, some down at White Pine, some over by Marquette and the Yellow Dog Plains. I kid you not. But for the most part, copper has not been mined there on a grand scale like it used to be for quite some time. But it's a beautiful, beautiful area. I go there several times a year. Kiss Alive. That's one of the bands that has an album named Alive. There's another one that's close with the addition of one word. So, Jacques Peevler says, don't forget the thumbs up button, people. Frampton, by the way, Jameson Soder says Frampton's album was called Frampton Comes Alive. And I was toying with the idea with putting Lehto's Law Comes Alive, but I thought I'd go with the Alive today. Behind you are those Reed microphones. Do you mean real microphones? Because those are all real microphones, unless you're referencing ribbon microphones. And that one right there is a ribbon microphone, but that's the only ribbon microphone. They are real. And by the way, the microphones behind me, people have said, Steve, you use this Electro Voice RE20 in your videos that you shoot and record. Why don't you ever use some of the mics behind you just for the fun of it? And the reason is that this microphone has got one of these connectors on it. And that's a fairly common industry standard connector, which I can use with what I do. Those microphones are from different eras, different plugs, and none of them, as far as I could tell, have this plug on them. So to get any one of them to work, I'd have to rewire something and be too much effort. And I think most of them work, but I have never actually used one, so I don't know. And I can go to all the work to discover that they don't actually work afterwards. Frampton was dead. No. Frampton was alive. What's interesting, and most people who are substantially younger than my generation don't understand, Frampton Comes Alive was an album that Peter Frampton put out. And at the time he put it out, very few people even knew who he was. He was a guitar player, I believe, in Humble Pie. And wonderful guitar player, but and he put in a couple studio albums. And for whatever reason, it all came together for him, and he recorded a concert. And the concert recording was so good, and his performances were so good, that the record company said, hey, let's put this out and promote the heck out of it. And it wound up being, at the time, the greatest selling live album of all time. And I don't know if it still holds that record or not, but it's got to be right up there. And so that's why Frampton Comes Alive was such an important album in the history of rock and roll. Tony Fox says he sees the $100 bill. Yeah, it's not hidden terribly well. I'm always tempted to do this in my videos and kind of hint where it is, but Andrew S., good morning from Canberra, Australia. My good friends in Australia, thank you very much. It's 4:31 a.m. Well, I show up being about 22 after the hour, so you might be a little bit off there. Maybe your alarm clock's a little fast. I've had people ask me specifically about how this relates to other time zones. And Paul in the UK sent me a note and said, Steve, we just got rid of daylight savings time, so now we're only 4 hours off from you when usually you're 5. And our daylight savings time is going to end pretty shortly. And when that happens, we'll then go back to the 5-hour distinction between U.S. Eastern time and British London time. And I had several people go, Steve, it's not London time, it's Greenwich Mean Time. And the problem, of course, is that if you ever see those clocks in the newsrooms where it's like New York, London, Paris, Munich, please somebody catch that. They always mention London. They don't mention Greenwich because most people think of the big city in London that we all think of, or big city in England as being London. So Frampton Comes Alive, 1976. There you go. Yeah, George points out that could be metric time from down under. Hey, Jeopardy 4100 checking in from Anchorage. Very dear friend of mine is an attorney in Alaska named John Cedar. Tall Thinky got the reference. Pop music. Thank you very much. Band called M, which I believe was from France. I could be wrong about that. But in the song, of course, because New York, London, Paris, Munich, everyone's talking about pop music. So whenever I hear New York, London, I go Paris, Munich. It's just what happens in my head. What ID do you need to produce for the police when asked? The penniless dreamer asks. That varies from state to state and whether you're driving or not. If you are a driver in most states, you're required to produce a driver's license, contrary to anything the sovereign citizens will tell you. In some states, you are required to identify yourself to a police officer if asked, but the law often says you can identify yourself. It doesn't say you have to show them identification because that would require you to carry ID, and no states, as far as I know, require you to actually carry ID. So if I was in a stop and ID state, and a police officer walked up and said, who are you? I could say, I'm Steve Lehto. And if he says, do you have identification to prove that? I could say, no. Or I could just say, I'm Steve Lehto. What's wrong with that? Look me up. By the way, I know my driver's license number off the top of my head if you want to look that up. So, hello from Salt Lake City, Utah. Todd, hey, how you doing? Glad to see people checking in from out west. The Grateful Dead, Harpal Blues. I believe the Grateful Dead, didn't they have a live album called Live Dead? I think they did. Emma's from the UK, according to JP. You know, I don't know why I was convinced they were French, but I also don't know if it's an actual band or if it's a guy using the pseudonym M. I do believe that the M he used in his name, or the name of the band, was a reference to the French, like the Paris subway system, which they call the Metro. And the Metro symbols are the little M's. I think I could be completely making this up. It's been a long time since that song was in the top 40. but I seem to recall that that's some of it. Donald Norby, do you feel like I do? And you got to do that through the voicing. Do you feel like we do? I seem to recall that Howard Stern a few years ago was talking about guests that had asked to come on his show. And he's always like, I'm not going to bring people on the show just to have them here unless there's something important to talk to them about. And Peter Frampton apparently had asked to come on his show. And they asked Peter, this, what are you going to bring today that's different than, a year ago? And his people had simply said, well, it's Peter Frampton. He's got that big album. And they said, yeah, that was decades ago. And so apparently they pitched the idea to Peter Frampton that he could come on the show if he did the entire interview through that voice box, which would have been great. But apparently he passed on that. So I can tell you, by the way, that I saw Peter Frampton in later years touring with David Bowie. I saw David Bowie at the Palace of Auburn Hills, Michigan. I believe it was the Glass Spider Tour. And Peter Frampton was the guitarist, and that was a pretty cool show. So if you like Bowie, it's going to be a good show. And putting something like Frampton on guitar, it's going to be a good show also. By the way, just so we're talking about guitars, I've seen Van Halen twice in the original lineup, and the second show I did have a backstage pass and get to hang out backstage. Didn't really get to interact with the band a whole lot. I was backstage and got to watch the entire show from the side of the stage. And I got to throw in here right now, by the way, that last night I went to a Blue October concert. I've mentioned in past when people said, Steve, can you please? Hey, by the way, Paul Bednall points out that M was a project of English musician Robin Scott. There you go. So I know part of that story was partially true, what I was thinking. Somebody asked me previously about bands I like right now, and I mentioned a band called Blue October. They're from Texas. They're touring right now, but they apparently tour. These guys are just road warriors. They've been touring for years. I've seen them 3 times in the last year and a half, 2 years. Fabulous show. Saw them last night at the Royal Music Theater. My friends on Facebook know this because I posted photographs from the show. And wonderful show. They did all the songs I wanted them to do except for the one they never do, which is She's My Ride Home, which they, for some odd reason, don't do live anymore. But great show. The only downside, and I know people are going to say, hey, Grandpa, if you don't like this, don't go to live shows. But there were some people behind me who were yelling along with the songs so loudly that there were times in the show where they were louder than the band. And trust me, the band was loud. And so I don't know if you go and you're screaming and yelling along with the songs, are you really enjoying the music? Because I can tell you right now, the people around you aren't. But like I said, overall, it was a good show. Paul Madaliano, we're the brown M&Ms missing from the bowl. Of course, that's the great story. By the way, we're over 400 right now in the room. But the great story about Van Halen is that they used to put in their concert rider all the rules about what you had to do and not do for them to show up at your venue and play. And buried deep amongst it was, we need a bowl of M&Ms with all the brown M&Ms removed. And they said they did that not just because they were, prima donnas, but because they wanted to actually see if the people at the show had read all the way to the bottom of the rider. And that was the first thing they would do, is they'd walk in and check the bowl of M&Ms. And if the Browns were gone, they knew that this was a good place to play. Mick 2 Whales says Eddie Van Halen is battling cancer, from what I've heard. Yeah, I read an article last week. Eddie Van Halen had some kind of cancer in either his tongue or his throat, and he's been battling that. And it sounds like he's getting through it, but I mean, it can't be fun. But I suspect the guys in Van Halen have lived very, very difficult lives, not in that they want for money, but the hardships they put their bodies through. So Mark says there are adapters to let you use the old microphones, and possibly even 2 adapters to make it work with your USB. Yeah, I'd have to look into that. I should pull one out and show you, but some of those microphones, like the ribbon mic right there, they haven't used a mic like that in 50 years. So I'd probably have to find an antique adapter of some sort. Hello from the UK and the home of Robert Plant, of course. And they did a great The song remains the same. Is that the concert film they did? I remember seeing that in a theater in Birmingham, Michigan. And the lights went down as a midnight showing. The lights went down, and within 30 seconds, the entire place was filled with marijuana smoke. I don't smoke it, but I recognize it when I smell it. So, what are you going to do? Schnauzer Daddy, tell us about your family. It's not a whole lot to tell you other than the fact that the defining thing is really I've got 5 older brothers. I'm the youngest of 6 boys. So you can imagine what that does to you. There's good things and bad things. JP says that Eddie believes that the metal guitar pick he put in his mouth regularly caused his cancer. I read that same thing too, but the question I have is, was he really using a metal guitar pick? Because I saw him play, and like I said, I was up close and personal, and he's using a plastic pick when I saw him, but maybe from time to time he uses a metal pick. I don't know. Steve, you plan to use the shut up and rock? Oh, do I plan just to shut up and rock again? Well, I'll tell you right now, the mouse pad I'm using right now is from 101.7 The Wall in Geneva, New York, near Lake Seneca. And they were the radio station that kindly let me come in and play rock and roll music for a 5-hour shift back in July. And they told me that they let me come back if I wanted to. So I probably will go back out there and do it again. It was a lot of fun to play disc jockey again. It's been a while since I played the rock and roll on the radio, and they were kind enough to let me do that. So, Jim Davis, hello from the home area of Jimmy Buffett. Where's that? Please let me know. Kiki says, I knew that Steve was the baby of the family. Now, why would you say that? It's kind of funny because I've met people who say, Steve, you know that if you're the baby of the family, it means the following. And half the things they say are correct and half of them are not. And it's kind of like astrology. People go, Steve, what sign are you? And I'll say, well, what sign do you think I am based on my personality? And amazingly, it takes them more than 6 guesses to figure it out, when the average would be 6. You should be able to guess on average what sign I am by guessing randomly 6 times. No one ever does. So it just shows you that I think that birth order and astrology are similar. Rejay says, hey, Steve, I'm from Jamaica. Watch videos of in Jamaica, the island? Cool. Because there is also towns called Jamaica around here. JP says, the baby always talks the most. No. Here's the problem. It might be why I talk so fast. But I can tell you that at the dinner table where there's 8 people, Mom, Dad, and then 3 brothers, 2 brothers, and me, if I wanted to get heard, I had to jam it in there really, really fast because the other guys were older than me and louder than me. So the baby doesn't get to talk. The baby's got to talk fast if you want to get heard. Roger N., I enjoy your small-town cop story. Reminding me of the small-town college cops waiting Friday night on the road back to college for kids who may be out late. Yeah, thanks. I was telling stories about when I lived in Bad Axe, Michigan. I getting pulled over by the cops all the time. I can tell you that I've handled cases statewide in Michigan, and there are some areas, for instance, East Lansing, Michigan, which is the home of Michigan State University, the Spartans, and there are police over there who are notorious for parking near bars, and they will then watch when a car pulls out of a bar parking lot, and they will just follow the person to see how they drive, because they know there's a very good chance the person is driving alone. They didn't bring a designated driver, and then they're bound to do something like weave, cross a line, do something, and they pull them over. And I've represented more than a few college students who got their first DUIs driving home from a bar late one night by themselves. So you should always bring a designated driver. Main Notary Net, Sagittarius or Leo? Keep guessing, my friend, because it's neither one of those. MHO8 says, I usually watch you at 1.5 speed. Other tubers talk so fast I have to keep at it normal. And by the way, this is an interesting point. Someone yesterday posted a comment that said, Steve, you talk too fast. I can tell you that the most common thing people tell me is that they watch my videos sped up 1.5 times or higher because they can listen at that speed and keep up. And frankly, ain't nothing happening here you got to watch. So if you think I talk too fast, the joke is, no, you're listening too slow. Jim Adams, is it beneficial to be a fast-talking lawyer? Believe it or not, it is, because there are times in court when you have a judge who's listening to you argue and you can see the eyes glaze over and you know you're losing their attention. You got to jam it in there really fast. But I'll also tell you, I've had a court reporter tell me to slow down. And the funny thing is, that's the only person you actually care about, because if they don't write it down properly, then the whole system falls apart. But I'm also here to tell you, I've asked the court reporter, how many words a minute can you do? And they named some crazy number. So if I can talk faster and they can write it down, then I'm either talking really, really fast or it's not that good of a court reporter. Swillmeister says, I enjoy your cadence. Thank you very much. Sometimes I think I speak in a monotone, but I do try to be less robotic. Pretend I'm a real boy. Who knows? So there you go. Did you get my fan appreciation letter? If you're writing that to me, Alex, I'd have to think about it. I get a lot of mail, and I appreciate all of it very, very much. And by the way, if my producer is nearby, you're not on camera. Don't worry about that. But on the ledge is the letter that was sent to me with the drawing. If you can find that, thank you very much. Thank you very much. And I just talked to my producer. And I was going to do a video about letters, and then I still might. But for those of you who checked in, I'm going to let you know right now that I got a letter the other day from Jesse. And I hope Jesse's watching, but I don't know. There's 400 people here. And if Jesse's watching, great. If Jesse's not watching, I hope you don't mind. But I got a letter and it says, hey, Steve, my name is Jesse. I'm from Alabama. My daughter and I love your show, and we tune in every single live episode. So maybe you're watching. Daughter's name is Savannah. And he goes, my daughter's 10, and I have a passion for the law and cars and the outdoors, which, of course, is three things I talk a lot about here. He goes, you're doing a good job. Keep up the great content. We love the stories and your sense of humor. And here is a picture Savannah drew for you. She draws. She's got a passion for drawing. I look forward to reading your books, Jesse. And he enclosed the photograph, or excuse me, he enclosed the picture that Savannah drew for me. And I'll see if I can get that on camera in a way that you can see it. Somewhere down the road, I might scan this and use this as a logo for an episode or two. And Savannah signed on the back. Me and my dad are the biggest fans of yours. Your show is the best law show on YouTube. We watch your videos every day. And we are from Jacksonville, Alabama, Savannah and Jesse. So there you go. Thank you very much. I love the effort that went into that, both on the part of the father and the daughter. I enjoy all of the correspondence. At the end of, yes, and Joel Kirschman points out that she got the toupee perfect. And you'll notice that she did, in fact, do the toupee. There we go, right there. Perfectly. But you'll notice that she got laws, the police, banks, cars. She got the cars up here, the microphones, the reading glasses, and Lehto's law. The whole shooting match. The attention to detail will pay off in buckets later in life. So that's good. So thank you very much. But at the end of every single video of mine is an address and contact information, my email address, my mailing address. And I've said to people, please, if you're the old school person who still writes with a pen or pencil and paper, crayon, magic marker, I don't care what it is, feel free to send it to me, and I appreciate the stuff more than you could possibly know. Right now, like I said, this was just out of reach, but I keep it handy. Does a yellow light mean slow down, or just the light is about to turn red? Depends on where you are. If you can slow down, you probably should. But if you can make it through the light safely, you can proceed. So there you go. Swillmeister says, have you ever considered running for office, political or judicial? I toyed with the idea briefly, and I'll tell you this. Where I live now, it wouldn't work, but where I used to live, I lived in an area that had a representative in the state legislature who was going to be term limited out. And I thought to myself, I could run here and try to run for the state legislature. That might be an interesting thing to do. But the problem is, if you watch what our political process has become these days, no one ever runs and says, vote for me, I'm good, I've got good ideas. They go, vote for me because my opponent is a bad person. I'm keeping my language clean. And nowadays, it's all about how bad you can paint your opponent to be, not how good you are. And so you can't control what other people do, especially in the days of PACs and anonymous donations to PACs. And there are races now in states, state-level races, where PACs from other states will come in and pour millions of dollars just to trash somebody. And I thought to myself, do I want to put up with that? Do I really want to be in a situation where someone's spending millions of dollars to make me look bad? I thought, the job doesn't pay that well, so I'm not going to do it. So I decided not to. People ask about running for judge, and I mentioned that before. It's something a lot of attorneys do aspire to, because it seems like a natural step up. You argue in front of the judge, and somebody become a judge. The problem I have with being a judge is that most judges in Michigan have got to handle several different kinds of things. District courts, you do traffic tickets, you do landlord-tenant cases, you do misdemeanor trials, and then in circuit courts, you might be doing divorces, lawsuits, felony trials. And those things are so different that, if you enjoyed one, you go, hey, this is great. I could do felony trials all day long. That might be interesting for me if I'm interested in that. But if I don't enjoy doing the divorce work, I still got to do it as part of the job. So I don't want to do that. So I have no interest in being a judge. But Swillmeister says, I think you'd be an excellent judge. Thank you. I appreciate that. I think I would too, at least when it comes to the kinds of cases I'd enjoy doing. And then I assure you that on landlord-tenant day in district court, I'd be pulling my hair out or my toupee. So there you go. Are there any landmark landlord-tenant cases? In law school, I know we read a bunch. And the interesting debates on landlord-tenant cases almost always center around how uninhabitable a place has got to become before you can start withholding your rent and saying, I'm not going to pay the rent until you fix this place up. And you always read these horrific cases about, the floor is caved in, there's no roof, the building's on fire, and the rats have taken over the living room, but the landlord wants his rent, But the other thing, of course, is rent control. It's more of an economic issue. But there are some cities that famously have rent-controlled apartments where the landlords can't charge what the apartments are worth. They can only charge what they're allowed to charge by the local government. And so it causes weird problems in the housing market, but it also allows someone to get a great deal on an apartment. And so the people who've got rent-controlled apartments think it's great. The landlords who own them hate them. But, so that's another thing. I remember reading cases about that also and getting in huge arguments during law school about that as well. If you had to run for office, which side, Democrat or Republican? That's part of the problem. Because I personally think that both sides have got some good ideas. And I also think that both sides have got some horrible ideas. That's one of the problems I have. And I would be one of those guys where if I got into the legislature, I'd be the first guy to say, by the way, everybody, not just my party, other party, good ideas, bring them to me. I don't care where they come from. Bad ideas from my own party, I won't vote for them. I don't care. I'm not going to vote as a block just to vote as a block. So I'm wondering if anybody else called out the fact that the other Alive is the Ramones live album, It's Alive. But just throwing that out there. So Anon Mason says we need more sides, and that is actually true. And Cheesy D, Militant Centrist Party, you are actually 100% correct. Here is my theory on how America could be fixed right now. And I think most people on both sides of this are going to agree with me. Right now, we've got in the legislature in D.C., you've got one side, you've got the other side, and it's really, really close. Not quite, because the Senate's off by a couple, and the House of Representatives is off by more than a few, meaning that the balance is not quite 50-50. It's like 51-49 at one side, and then the House of Representatives, I think it's like 55-45 or 53-47. If some smart, rational people who cared about our country, who were towards the center of those two parties, got together and said, let's start voting as a bloc, it wouldn't take many of them to start controlling which side of that could win. Meaning that just because one side's got 53% doesn't mean they can jam stuff through, because if enough people from this side joined enough people from this side and said, no, we're going to control the center could actually control both houses of Congress. And as you know, the center ain't too far to one side and it ain't too far to the other. And so you need a party, whether it's a new party or just a group of people, a coalition from both parties. But you need people in the middle to step up and go, you know something? You got the far right, you got the far left. We are the reasonable center. And we're here to try to just make things more palatable for people who aren't crazy at either end. And you'll notice I'm not picking out one side or the other, because it needs people from both sides to come together and go, we're going to do this. And it's difficult to launch a third party in America, because most people think, well, we have the left, we have the right, but they always think that the third party is going to be like way over here, or just some, Ross Perot, okay? So remember, his theme song was Crazy by Patsy Cline, okay? So I liked Ross Perot, but my point is that it would be better to say the third party arose from the middle, not from the far edge of one wing or the other. So, see here, how Canadian that sounds, Silver Volvo. You know something? The Canadians have got some great ideas too. Hi from Berrien Springs, Michigan, Nathan. I'm very familiar with Berrien Springs. It's a place where Muhammad Ali spent much of his time not far from Niles and not far from Eau Claire. And of course, the north end of Berrien Springs, the road out of town, there's a place called Deans Hill Road, which I rode my bike over several times. I'm not sure which of the hills was Deans Hill, but that was the name of the town, or the name of the road. J.B. Wells says the masses are idiots, though. History has taught us that. Yes, they are. I mean, unfortunately, when you talk about just the masses, you take 1 million people and get a consensus, it's gonna be stupid. But unfortunately, when you have a situation where people are allowed to vote, and you ask them to vote, certain problems arise, and one of them simply is that. John says Willie Nelson wrote Crazy. He might have, but Patsy Cline sang it, and she's the one who's I believe most famous for it. And it was her version that he played at his rallies. I love Willie Nelson. I love the song Poncho and Lefty, which was a duet he did. I know he did not write Poncho and Lefty. Poncho and Lefty is written by Townes Van Zandt. But Willie Nelson's version of Poncho and Lefty with Merle Haggard is the greatest version of it out there. But I also love Willie Nelson. Always on My Mind is a masterpiece. And I'm here to tell you that I like the Pet Shop Boys version of that also. So, but I know my music, and so there you go. I'm strongly in agreement with the Electoral College. Do you think it should remain or be abolished? The Electoral College is a weird thing, because generally speaking, it works. And the Electoral College is one way that you can make it to where the president doesn't get elected every single time by simply who's most popular in the 2 or 3 most populous states. They just simply went off of pure vote totals. California and New York would have outsized influence on the elections. So I like the idea that the Electoral College makes it so that the whole country kind of gets a say on it. But then some people pointed out that the Electoral College also gives an outsized influence to some of the states in the middle of the West, where there's not that much population, but they still get a bunch of electoral votes. So it's a strange thing, but I actually think overall it does more good than bad. We recently hit 426 on the counter. I wasn't paying attention, but 426, of course, is how many cubic inches there are in the old school Hemi. So there you go. Jeopardy, Poncho Lefty, big thumbs up. There you go. I know my music. Diana, SF, NG, hello, Steve Lehto, and all in chat, and hello to you too. Hi from Albert, California. Albert, where's Albert, California? Never heard of that one. So, 428 watching, new record. I believe I broke 500 once in one of the earlier chats that I did, but I could be wrong. But I'd have to take a look at that. There we go. I thought he was going to say we hit 420. Well, we did obviously hit 420. And by the way, for those of you who are curious, there's a bunch of engine numbers. There's a 426 Hemi, and of course, Ford had a 427. I believe Ford also had a 428 and a 429. And General Motors had a 427. And you might wonder, what's with all these ones that are right around 430? And I believe that is exactly, is that 7 liters? I could be wrong. It's either 6 or 7 liters because it's 61 cubic inches to a liter. I could do the math on that. But I know that in NASCAR in the 1960s and early 1970s, that was the cap on how large your engine could be. So Chrysler ran their 426, GM ran the 427, and then Ford ran the 429s. But the interesting thing is that you can find some photographs of some cars that were racing, and on the hood it would say 429 or 430. And the car might have not been available with that. And so Bill France in NASCAR had said that the car had to run a stock engine and it had to run a stock body, but the engines could be drilled out and oversized as long as it didn't go over that cap on liters. And so there were some guys who took their 426 Hemis and bored them out slightly to 430. And Andrew S. points out and says, yes, the approximate 7 liters is what that would be. Now, Trifingers is pointing out that there's a 454 Chevy big block, and that's 7.4 liters. And that is correct. There were larger engines out there, but that's why, for instance, you never saw a 440 running in NASCAR. The Chrysler 440 was too large for NASCAR, according to the actual NASCAR rules. So, Merge 21 says, should Puerto Rico become a state? I don't know. Do they want to become a state? You know, there's always these debates about whether, Puerto Rico could become a state, or the Upper Peninsula of Michigan at one point in time they were talking about making that its own state, like Superior. Guam, I guess, U.S. Virgin Islands could become a state. Number one question is if they want to become a state or not. I don't even know. It's going to screw the flag up. We forget how perfectly 50 stars fits on that field of blue. And there was a time when we had 49 stars, 48 stars. We had 48 for quite a while. And then 47, 46. And it's interesting because there were some times there for 2 or 3 years where there'd be so many stars and then they'd add a couple. And I actually had some old photographs for one of the books I wrote about the Italian Hall disaster, where I found a photograph of a mother and her child posing in a studio in front of a flag with a really, really unusual star formation on it that only existed for 2 years or 3 years. And it was a star formation from like 1912 or 1910. I forgot the exact time frame. But it was a pretty interesting thing because I'd never really looked at the progression of how many stars got added and then how the picture changed or how the formation changed. And that's the question is if you added 1 star, I'm just curious, if you added 1 star, how could you do it and not cause the entire flag pattern to be screwed up in a way that would, not look good? Am I going to see Ford versus Ferrari by QA Library? Absolutely. In fact, I haven't seen a movie at a theater in a few months, and that's one I'd like to go see. Number one, I find the story interesting, and I also like Matt Damon. So I'm assuming it's going to be good. It should be good. I'm looking forward to it. So Puerto Rico wants the U.S. to assume all their debt. Well, That's the one thing you got to make sure you keep clear. If you're gonna bring them in, it's like, be careful when you marry somebody who's got a ton of debt. See if they can somehow offload it first. So, yes, Andrew S. says, Steve Lehto, fun with flags. Now, if this was a true episode of Fun with Flags, I'd actually have a flag here and explain to you the importance of it. So, of course, we're referring there to the Big Bang Theory. James says, hey, you could use the new star as an asterisk at the bottom. Yeah, you could. Put an asterisk in Puerto Rico down at the bottom of the flag. There you go. Could we sell them to Cuba? I don't know. Does Cuba want them? As an attorney, what are your thoughts on the impeachment hearings being held in secret? You've actually raised 3 issues. And one of them is, the question is, what are my thoughts on the impeachment hearings? And then the fact they're holding some hearings in secret. Congress holds hearings in secret all the time, and I believe, and I don't want to get political here, but I believe that in the previous hearings that have been held in my lifetime, at least twice, some of the hearings were in fact held in secret. My understanding is that the hearings being held in secret are available to both sides of the aisle, meaning that both political parties have access to them. Whether the public has access to them, that's another thing altogether. That information will probably come out, but Congress routinely holds hearings in secret because there are issues that are being held in secret. And I can assure you that if they held these hearings publicly, you'd have people complaining, going, why are they doing this in public? So, in my mind, hold them in secret, get the information together, then release the information if it's relevant and not going to damage the economy or the government. But as for the impeachment hearings themselves, it's an interesting question because a lot of people don't understand what the impeachment means. And there's an impeachment process, and without getting too heavily into it, the Constitution says that federal officials can be impeached, and they hold hearings, and then if the House wants to, they draft articles of impeachment, and then they take the articles and they pass them over to the Senate, and then there's a trial held in the Senate. And if the person who's being impeached is, in essence, found guilty in that hearing, then they are punished by some process that the Senate decides on, which could be up to removal from office or some other punishment. So in our history, of course, I think Andrew Johnson may have been subject to impeachment. Richard Nixon probably was going to be impeached. Bill Clinton was impeached. And then right now they're discussing it. So they're still very, very early in the process. But again, that's very, very political, and I really don't want to go there. So beyond that, do you watch Nick's Garage? Nick's Garage is not one I've heard about. I know several garage shows on television and also on YouTube. I'll admit I watch Gas Monkey Garage Fast and Loud, and I occasionally watch Graveyard Cars, the Mark Warman. And I often jokingly point out that there's an episode of Graveyard Cars where one of the guys on Mark Warman's staff is sitting in the background reading my book on the Dodge Daytona and the Plymouth Superbird. And I've corresponded with Mark Warman quite a bit. Mark Warman's a big Mopar guy. He loves finding, old, wrecked, or just decrepit-looking Mopars, and he fixes them up and makes them look brand new. And his shop, I think, is up in Oregon somewhere. So very, very cool show. I forgot, it's on the Velocity channel, I think, or maybe Speed, but it's on one of the lower cable channels. Got to go look for it. But if you got the channel, watch for it. And I do like Gas Monkey. I will admit that some of those reality shows, Counting Cars and so on, they spend too much time trying to make the shows look like reality shows where it's like, oh my gosh, we've got a deadline. The car's got to get done by Tuesday, or we're going to lose a $10,000 bet with the other guy. And meanwhile, there's one guy snapping towels, and the other guy's like hitting the other guy with the rivet gun or something. And I'd much rather just have him back off and go, look, we've got this car. Walk around it and show it to us, and then show the process of how you restored it, and then walk around and show it to us finished. I don't need to see the one guy pulling the practical jokes on the other guy. I don't need to hear that there's some make-believe challenge that if we don't get this thing to Dallas by Thursday, we're going to lose our lunch bet with the other guys. I don't care about that stuff. But I do like Richard and Aaron in particular. I know Aaron left Gas Monkey or Fast and Loud. And Aaron, a couple of things about that guy is a genius. If you watch the stuff that he comes up with, the ideas he has, I don't agree with all of them. I mean, number one, he lets Richard paint all these cars green, and green almost never belongs in a car, excepting that one. But number two, Aaron Kaufman, without the beard, is Adam Levine. I'm convinced they're the same person. Prove me wrong. Internet, look into it. Do memes. Take it to Reddit. I'm convinced that Aaron Kaufman and Adam Levine from The Voice, the singer, Maroon 5, I'm convinced they are one and the same person. They slap a beard on him and have him talk cars on one show. They pull the beard out, put on a bunch of fake tattoos, and have him talk music on another show. But I could be wrong. And people are pointing out that they, Aaron Kaufman did in fact leave Fast and Loud, and that may be one of the reasons he left was the fact that it was less about the the cars and more about the personality of reality television. By the way, I am aware of the time. It's 2:02, but as always. If we're rolling and I got no place to go, I hope you don't either. I'll stick around for a little while longer. We're at 446 people in the room right now. 447. Is there? I don't know. There's no way that we can actually tell our friends to log in, is there? I mean, what do? Send someone a note through Facebook or something? I mean, it would be so nice to hit 500. I'd really like that. By the way, James says there's only one Olsen twin as well. That's possible. And what's funny is you'll notice they always say there's like a good twin and an evil twin, even with the Olsens. So JP says, any update on the pizza shop? I never heard back from the pizza shop. I sent the pizza shop an email with the photograph of the pizza that had gone surfing, which I ate half of. And they never responded. Donald Norby, Chasing Classic Cars. I like that guy. I'm drawing a mental blank on Chasing Classic Cars, the host's name. And what he does is he drives around the country and he finds people who've got old cars they want to sell. And he works on a deal and he occasionally buys cars and he owns a shop back east someplace. I don't know, Connecticut, New Hampshire, someplace up there. And sometimes the cars need restoration. Sometimes they just need to be cleaned up and gone through. And some of them actually need massive overhauls. But he gets the strangest cars. And quite often they're being pulled out of garages or barns. And that's a really cool show too. I like that one also because there are not any made-up dramas or stories or anything like that. And the most drama he'll ever have is where he will simply say, like, hey, I got this car. I cleaned it up. I'm taking it to Pebble Beach, and we'll see what happens. And then the show goes along, and hey, I got an award. My car won the best for unrestored or whatever. And that's all the drama you need. I don't need to see the guys getting in the towel fights in the back room. Quite frankly, I think it's a little bit of a problem. Zach Bauer says, are you no longer in the pocket of Big Pizza? No, obviously I am. Why do you think I'd go after and attack that small pizza place? Because they are one of the people who are trying to take down Big Pizza. I am so disappointed. We're joking about a video I put up a long, long time ago about Sam Crack and his pizza car. And Sam Crack is one of the guys on YouTube. He's a good friend of mine. I've talked to him on the phone many times. I did a video about the car that Sam bought that had the Domino's livery on it. And Domino's threatened him with legal action. I did a video about that. And then I did a joint video with him. And I've talked to him on the phone many times. See that so much? I've got two phones here. And people watch one or both of my videos and they assume that I don't like Sam or we don't get along or that I'm attacking Sam or whatever. And one guy accused me of being in the pocket of Big Pizza. I forgot if he coined it or I coined it. And he claimed he's going to take all my videos, all 800 of them, and run them through a language analyzer to see and prove mathematically that I am in fact pro-big business and anti-consumer, which is funny because all I do is attack big business. And so I pinned his comment and said, please do that and report back. And we never heard from him again. So it's sad because I'd like somebody to do that kind of analysis on my language. I think to find out I say I digress a lot. Joel Kirschman says, fun fact, Sam Crack is how I found you. By the way, I believe you, and I actually gained a lot of subscribers and views from the videos right around the time of the Sam Crack controversy. And so it's another reason I have a very fond place right here for Sam. He's one of the people that I've gotten to know on YouTube as just another YouTuber. So Rocky says, we think you're great, from Maple Valley, Washington. Maple Valley, Washington. Sounds like a beautiful place. I hope there's a valley there. You know, you always hear about these places that are misnamed. Michigan's got a place called Mount Clemens, and it is flatter than a parking lot at a Walmart. Mount Clemens. Friend of mine was a disc jockey. He went in the air one day. He goes, oh my gosh, Mount Clemens has erupted. So, GS979 says, Steve, you look lonely for a 50-something-year-old, and it makes me kind of sad. I look lonely? When I'm here with 458 of my best friends, how can I be lonely? And I've got a producer. So I'll be fine. I'll make it. So Zebulon says, found you from Super Speeders Rob. Did he mention me? Or did we mention each other? I'm trying to remember. I corresponded with him about something recently. I'm trying to remember what it was. Are you running out of unique places to hide the Benjamin? Yes. I ran out like 6 months ago. I can tell you right now that the $100 bill is always in the shot behind me. But occasionally I'll put it right back here. It'll be behind my head. And so if I move my head, you'll see it. But if I don't move my head far enough, you won't see it. And the one place that throws a lot of people off is when I stand it up between the books like that. And there's a guy named, I think it's Grosser, but it's got the weird German symbol in his name, but he's from Michigan. And every single video he checks in and says where the 100 is. And occasionally he'll admit and go, I think I see it, and he'll call out some spot like that. There have been one or two occasions where I put it out of the shot by accident. So for instance, I know I accidentally put it down here one time, and you can see it today on camera now, but you couldn't see it with a big Nikon. So that's my mistake. Are there any lawyers that have dogs? Oh, I know a lot of lawyers with dogs. I talked to my friend Ian yesterday. I was out walking his dog. My friend Scott's got a couple dogs. A lot of dog lawyers, a lot of lawyer dogs. So Laurel says, you don't look lonely, too busy with so many interests. Another false diagnosis. Loneliness. Is that in the DSM, producer? No. Okay, loneliness is not in the DSM. I just checked. But I've done videos about all the diagnoses that people have done, and they say, Steve, you've gotten a list off all the diseases, illnesses, maladies, aches and pains, and so if someone thinks I look lonely, that is in fact just another diagnosis. By the way, I'm going to answer two of the most pressing questions I get asked. People say, Steve, why do you keep looking to your right? And why do you keep looking down? And I'll tell you right now, the room I'm in has a window right there. And so if anything really crazy happens out there, I look. So if a car goes by, no. A squirrel goes by, no. I mean, Homer Simpson would look, but I don't. But if someone stops and is like looking towards, I'll look to make sure they're not gawking. Or if a weird vehicle goes by, I might look. So the window's that way. And down here right now is where I've got my mouse, because I got to control things on the screen here. And I also do have right here, usually on my videos, I've got a recording device right here that I have to hit start and stop on, and I've got to watch it to make sure that the recording's working properly. And I've got an iPad right here that's the time. So right now I've simply got it set as a clock so I can see that it's 2:10 Eastern time. But that's why I keep looking to the right. Whenever I look to the left, it's usually because I've got something written down. So written stuff goes over here. So I've already mentioned my 4 talking points. I made a note to mention. So we're done over there. That's why I haven't looked over here lately. So there you go. Up to 462. Yeah, we broke 460 there. I originally found you when searching for sovereign citizens, Stuart Thompson. Yeah, it's kind of funny that I do occasionally tag my videos with something like that, and there's so much good sovereign stuff on the internet, which of course is why I have the I do not consent shirt on. So, Steve, update that list of illnesses. I've got the list actually in another room. My favorite one was the guy who said that I've got the obvious painkiller addiction. Oh, and the other guy who said I've got the nerve problem that could be ALS, and he goes, yeah, Steve, he goes, every time I see your right hand, it's shaking uncontrollably. And I'm going like, this right hand? Shaking uncontrollably? And he goes, well, not in every video. And I said, but you've seen it shaking uncontrollably in a video? And he goes, yeah, he goes, about every third video. And I said, so wait, you think that some days it shakes uncontrollably and some days it does not? And he goes, well, yeah, ALS is like that. I said, oh, okay, well, I wouldn't know because I don't have ALS. Why wouldn't my left hand shake uncontrollably? So, John Ferguson, Stephen, watching you live from Carriacou? I can't pronounce it. What is that? What is with the mile roads? Someone said they live on 9 Mile. Is that a town? No, they don't live in 9 Mile. They live on 9 Mile. In Detroit, Detroit is a town on the bank of the Detroit River. And when it was first founded, there were trails that ran out of town. One trail ran due north, one trail ran up to Saginaw, one trail ran towards the center of the state, and one trail ran due west. And over time, those trails got named, and they became what is now I-94, Grand River Avenue, Woodward Avenue, and Gratiot Avenue. There's actually a couple more, and then as you go up Woodward Avenue from Detroit, from its base, about every mile is a road. And someplace north of 8 Mile Road, they got lazy and started calling them mile roads. And even though some of them have real names, like 15 Mile Road is Maple Road, some of them just are the numbers, 8 Mile Road, which of course is a song by Eminem. So many people jokingly will tell you, of course, that 16 Mile Road is known as Big Beaver in Troy. West of there, it's, I think, Walnut Lake Road. East of there becomes Metro Parkway, but that's 16 Mile Road. But basically, if you are on Woodward Avenue at a mile road, that's how many miles you are from the base of Woodward Avenue, give or take a little bit. I think they were naming these roads before anybody bothered to measure them that accurately, but that's how it is. Swillmeister says, this is the kind of stuff I love. Yeah, it's kind of funny. When I go off on topics that are not legal in nature, I will invariably get some people commenting saying, Steve, I hate it when you talk about stuff that's not the law. And I say, I'm sorry. I try to label the videos, and I'll start right up and go, there's no law in this video. So, somebody will watch a video for 15 minutes ago, there's no law in it. Say that's the first thing I said at the beginning of the video, But I do know there are people in the audience who like the canoe videos. I've done a bunch of videos where I'm out in my canoe. And I know people who like the history videos, and I know people who like the ones that are way off topic, but I try to label them so you can at least figure that out. So I'm glad to hear that people like this stuff. I am deep down a historian as well as a lawyer. Somebody says it may not have been ALS, may have been Parkinson's, and that might be what they're thinking as well, but they didn't diagnose me that accurately. So, because I know the Parkinson's can also lead to involuntary hand motions like this one. But I think ALS also has some similar symptoms later on. But again, like I said, I don't have either one, so I don't know. A little rant, history, law, all good. You're a good storyteller. Thank you. Thank you. So, any legal issues removing a mattress tag? It depends. Code of the dog. Are you the seller or manufacturer of the mattress, or are you the end user? Because I believe that most, and again, I'd have to look into this, so I'm just freestyling here, but I believe that most mattress tag warnings and the warnings like that are aimed at the manufacturers and sellers of the mattress so that the buyer can be informed when they buy the mattress. I think that once you've got the mattress, you can remove the tag with impunity, I think. But I don't know. I've never met a mattress tag lawyer, so. And Tina Burgess went there. Tina Burgess says, yes, Big Beaver Road is exit 69 on I-75, and it is. I drove by it yesterday. So I occasionally broadcast live from a car show in Troy called the Troy Traffic Gym. And it's always put on by this charity in Troy, and it's a really, really cool event. And I always try to tell people that, yeah, it's on 16 Mile Road. And you kind of have to mention it, because if you don't, people are going to say it anyways. But yeah, it's at 16 Mile Road or Big Beaver, near Crooks in Troy. And if you're coming up I-75, it is, in fact, exit 69. So there you go. And yes, it would be the pillow police would be enforcing the mattress tag according to Lovins. There you go. So there you go. I was just watching the story of you at the radio station. You mean when I was living in Bad Axe, Michigan? Targeted survivor? Yeah, I occasionally talk about the history of Steve, which involves the time I spent working as a disc jockey. And the first time I moved out of my house as an adult, I moved to Bad Axe, Michigan for about 2 years. And it was culture shock of a sort I'd never even imagined. I went there to be a disc jockey. I thought, I'm going to be a disc jockey for a couple of years, and no. Didn't understand what it meant to go live in a tiny little town where the police would pull you over every week or two just to say hello. So the question Laurelyn asks is, what if you sell the mattress later? And that might be the problem. If you go to sell the mattress, of course, you're selling the mattress used as is. Does anybody ever actually sell a mattress? I always thought mattresses just got wound up by the side of the road, dumped along with tires and engine blocks and oil drums. I think whatever they make mattresses out of, it's like one of the most durable materials known to man. Because you'll see a mattress like in an alley or something. It's been there for like 20 years. And the building's gone, but the mattress is still there. Jim Davis points out pillows have similar tags. Yes, they do. Yes, they do. So your voice is not out of sync. I should start talking and then keep moving my mouth. And I'm just kidding. I could turn this into a Godzilla film. Anybody buying a used mattress is not going to check the tag anyways. The Brandon wrote. Yeah, like I said, as your lawyer, I don't recommend you buy a used mattress. It just seems like that'd be a really, really inadvisable thing to do. But, if you want to, I understand that people want to live frugally and save their money and spend their money wisely. But when it comes to cutting corners, if you had to pick the thing where you don't cut corners, underwear, mattresses, toothbrushes, hairbrushes and combs, these are things you do not buy used, okay? Don't buy used underwear. Don't buy a used mattress. Don't buy a used toothbrush, okay? I don't know why. Now, again, if you want to disregard my advice, go right ahead. But you've had a lawyer tell you, don't do it. So there you go. How do I become your lawyer? JDuds100. You would have to be in Michigan or have a Michigan problem and do one of two things. Either buy a lemon automobile, and if it qualifies as a lemon, you hire me to represent you in the lemon law claim. Or if you get a traffic ticket in southeastern Michigan and you call me, and I think I can actually help you, I still do those from time to time. The last a couple days ago, as I said, the last time I talked to a guy about this, a couple days ago, a guy is going in for an informal hearing. And if he loses that and wants to have a formal hearing, I said, give me a call back and we'll talk. So I still handle those from time to time. So it's always fun. Steve's just in the pocket of big toothbrush. Yeah, and big mattress too. Yeah. What's funny, and I know you're joking, but the number of people who accuse me of being on the payroll of Walmart, because I did the video about whether or not Walmart can ask to see your receipt as you walk out the door. I've had people say, this guy obviously works for Walmart. And if it's so obvious, why aren't they paying me? If they want to pay me and I took their money, I'd have a little disclosure here. It says, by the way, this is an advertisement for Walmart. But it's not, because they're not paying me. I wish they were. I will tell you that I got an email from somebody, and I get these about once a month, where somebody will say, hey, Steve, I saw your videos I want to know if you're interested in taking a product from us and using it and talking about it on your show. And I said, I always respond the same way. There's two things. I will only do it if it's a product I actually will use. I'm not going to say, oh my gosh, I got this curling broom, and it's the nicest curling broom I've ever used. So I've never used a curling broom in my life, and I probably never will. No offense to Canadians or curvers. So people have offered to send me things, and I go, I would never use that. Don't bother. Don't bother. So I've turned down things like free radar detectors. I've turned down dash cams, which I understand I could use those, but I don't feel like it. I've turned down a whole bunch of other auto-related things, and I'm not going to use them. I'm not going to use something just so I can talk about it. I'm not a Kardashian, okay? But then the second thing is I say, if I use it, I get to be honest and tell what I really think about it. And I actually had a guy contact me and go, Steve, we sell a line of car care products, including wax for a car. Do you ever wax your car? I said, yes, I do. I've got 2 Explorers, an old one and a new one. I wax them both. Wax on, wax off. He said, we'll send you the stuff, and all we ask is that if you use it, that you talk about it. I go, I can be honest, and the guy goes, knock yourself out. I said, great. He goes, we just sent you a package. So who knows? We'll see how it goes. Is your office on Ford Road in Garden City? No, that is not me. Truman asks that. I know those guys. There's a guy named Chris Lovas and Steve Toth, Consumer Legal Services. I know those guys very, very well. They're nice guys. They've been doing my kind of law, lemon law, for almost as long as I have. So I know them. I also know the guys, Steve Stancroft and Mark Romano, who I've done videos and interviews with on my channel. And those are nice guys also. And at one point, those guys all worked together. So they used to work together, own firms now. But they're very good friends of mine. Very, very nice guys. Do you want an Elgin boat motor from the bottom of a lake? Which lake? And do I have to go get it? The FTC does now require that you use products you endorse now, correct? Mark Ewing. I'm not sure if it's so much that you have to use it to endorse it. I think you have to be truthful about the endorsement. Otherwise, it's considered to be a slightly different form of advertising. So if I said, hey, this is a great pen, okay, I don't have to use it to endorse it, but I think I'd have to be open about whether or not they're paying me for the endorsement or not. And that's one of the things that I know that the influencers on Instagram often get in trouble for, is they will talk about a product without saying this is a paid endorsement. And that often violates both the Federal Trade Commission rules as well as the own rules made by the people who run those platforms. I can tell you that on this channel, on YouTube, if I was being paid to wear this shirt, which I'm not, but if I was, I would have to disclose that. And if I didn't disclose it, I'd be violating YouTube's rules. So as of right now, you have not seen anything on my channel I was paid to put here, because no one's paid me to put anything here. So when someone gives me a shirt and I wear it, I'm not being paid to wear the shirt. It's a free shirt, and I'll admit they gave it to me. But on the other hand, you know, a lot of the stuff was given to me also, but I never promised anybody that I'd put anything up, and I never promised anybody I would wear any given shirt. However, if you send me a double XL, it fits, it's comfortable, and it looks nice, I can always use more shirts. I've got about 150 right now. So, what is a curling broom? Joel Feinberg. Don't you ever watch curling on the television? Depends what part of the country you live in, I guess. But curling is a sport that rose, I believe, in Canada. They play it on ice. It's in the Winter Olympics. You slide a stone down a sheet of ice, and there's a target at the far end, and you try to land your stones in the target. The other side tries to bounce your stones out, a bunch of things. And after you release your stone, the other members of your team can use a broom in front of it and try to get the stone to curl or change its direction as it goes down the ice. And the broom is what you do that with. And it's a comical thing to watch. It can be fun to watch. And no matter how long I watch it, I've never understood the rules. And I've had people try to explain it to me. And I'm like, you know something? I've played a lot of sports in my life. That's the one sport I still don't think anybody could ever actually explain it to me, because I can watch it and go, don't know. So, Code of the Dog says it's like shuffleboard, but with no heat. There you go. In fact, I think it's pretty much exactly shuffleboard, except the difference is that on shuffleboard you push the thing, the puck, and it goes down on its own. And in curling, you release the stone, and there's this long, drawn-out process as this thing wanders down the ice. And like I said, the people on your team are trying to broom in front of it. And then after a certain point, the opponents can broom in front of it to get it off the ice. And there's a thing called a hog line, which I have no idea what it means or why they would call it that, because I don't think there's any actual swine on the ice. So, again, I don't know. Like I said, it's a confusing thing to me. So, Jim Davis, I love to watch curling. Like I said, I'll be flipping around. I'll watch it too. It's very calming. It's relaxing. You don't. It's. I think it's the only sport played on ice where there's no fist fights. Oh, I'm sorry, figure skating, if you consider that of the sport. What's the T-shirt size? Double XL, XXL. And people say, Steve, you don't look that big. Do you really need a double XL? Well, here's the thing. I'm tall. I'm 6'2". I know you can't tell by the way I'm sitting, but I'm I'm not standing here. I'm on a chair. Double XL is the size that will fit me. I can wear some XLs, but occasionally a poorly cut XL or an XL from another country won't fit me. So double XL will always fit me. I've got a couple that are kind of baggy, but to be on the safe side, double XL. And the address is at the end of every video of mine. And somebody points out that broom is not a verb. Hey, you. Actually, broom is a verb. Broom can be a verb. Now, I understand that in the sport of curling, I suspect they call it sweeping, right? So sweeping is, I think, the correct term, which would be the verb for what you do with the broom. But you can say, I broomed that out of here. And that is, in fact, a verb. So I'd have to check the OED to see if it's proper or not. But, again, we'll see about that. Jack Summers says an extra large long should fit. Yeah, you'd think so. You'd think so. Downhill for Life says Tonya Harding. Yeah, Tonya Harding is the one who introduced violence to figure skating. Tonya Harding, in many ways, was an American hero. She would work out at a local mall where she was from, and the public was invited to come watch her workouts. She'd take a break, go to the side, and smoke a cigarette. An American Olympic athlete would take breaks in public, smoking a cigarette, signing autographs for little kids. Is it any wonder that she was somehow involved in a conspiracy involving hitmen sent to whack a competitor? And in that sentence, I was using hitmen and whack literally, not figuratively. So, Steve Whittier, movie, Flash of Genius. Thumbs up. Flash of Genius, the movie. Greg Kinnear plays the role of the man from Detroit who invented the intermittent wiper. He patented it, took it to Ford, offered to license it to them. They said, nah, we're not interested. And then they just went and released their own without paying him for his patent. He took them to court, couldn't afford the attorneys, eventually fired his attorneys, and tried the case on his own and won, which is a nightmare and a miracle in patent court. And he wound up getting a ton of money for it. He then had to sue GM and Chrysler. I'm not sure the order on those. He did not win all the lawsuits, but I remember seeing him on David Letterman one night where he's explaining the whole story. And then someone wrote a magazine article called Flash of Genius for a magazine. I forgot it's for The Atlantic or somebody, New Yorker maybe. And then that got turned into the movie starring Greg Kinnear. And it's a very, very cool movie called Flash of Genius. I recommend it. As far as legal and court stories go, it's actually fairly accurate, I think. So Steve Lake's talking about words. Is Bajent Ledik a saying or even a word meaning in the U.S.? Never heard of either of those. Unless you're saying legit. Legit, I've heard of that one. MH08, I don't understand rugby or cricket. Well, no one does. Rugby is kind of like the game we played called Keep Away when I was in elementary school. And you'd throw a ball in the middle of a field, and then you'd try to grab it and run away with it, and then everyone else would just pile on top of you and try to hurt you. And then when you had too much pain, you'd give the ball to somebody else to take the ball. And it's basically a game of sadomasochistic kids beating on each other until somebody said, oh, lunch is over, go back inside. Cricket has absolutely no rational explanation. And I've watched cricket. Again, I've actually watched a video that purported to explain how cricket works and didn't understand it. And I know that cricket is quite popular in England and India and New Zealand and Australia. But again, the game makes no sense. So I don't know what to tell you there. I do know there's a running theme involving cricket, Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. So if any of you out there are HHGG fans, I am as well. I've read all 4 books of the trilogy. I've also read all the Dirk Gently books, and was very, very saddened when Mr. Adams passed away a few years ago, and is also very saddened when the movie came out and did such a horrible job of telling the story of Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy Book 1. But again, cricket, like I said, is featured in that book prominently, so there you go. Joel Kirschman says, you just enraged all 3 British viewers watching. I may have. But I'll tell you right now, I was in a taxi in London, and I said something to the guy, and the guy goes, oh, you're an American? And I said, yeah. And he said, oh, I can tell from your accent. And I was going to go, yeah, you're British. I can tell from your accent, but I didn't. And he goes, I don't understand that American football. And I go, oh, okay. I understand you guys call what we call soccer, you guys call football. And I understand there's that distinction. I go, but I mean, are you a football fan here? He goes, no, I'm a rugby fan. And I go, well, rugby and football, I go, they have some things in common. And he goes, yeah, your American football players are wimps. And I go, why is it? And he goes, they wear helmets. And I was thinking to myself, you know something? I would love to see some of the toughest rugby players put on helmets, come over here and play American football for a little while and just see what happens. But I'm going to tell you right now, one last story, and then we're going to have to wrap it up. That same trip, I was at the London Zoo. It's a very, very cool zoo. And I'm walking through the London Zoo, and I'm standing there looking at an exhibit of animals, and I'm talking about something, and somebody turns around and goes, oh, you're an American. I can tell from your accent. So what you should gain from this video presentation today is that I talk too loud when I'm traveling, apparently, because I had 2 different people go, you're from America, you have an American accent. And I look at the guy and I go, yeah. I go, where are you from? And he goes, I'm from Manchester. And I said, oh. I go, you know, I'm a big football fan. I like Manchester United. So forgive me, I know this is a while ago. And he goes, where are you from? And I go, Detroit. And he goes, oh, the Lions. And he said it derisively. This is a guy 5 time zones away who knows how bad the Lions are. Okay? And I go, I'm not a Lions fan. I'm a hockey fan. And he goes, so? I go, Detroit Red Wings. He goes, I'm a Penguins fan. So I'm in England being ridiculed by a man who knows who the Lions are, doesn't care for the Red Wings, but he likes the Penguins. So there you go. But we're going to wrap it up now. We've been here for more than an hour and a half, and that's pretty much about all I can handle. I'm running out of steam here. I appreciate everyone who checked in. Like I said, last week I wasn't here on the right day because of the marathon. Last night I saw Blue October, just throwing that in there for the fun of it. If you don't know who they are, look them up on YouTube. We did break 450 a couple times in the population in the room. Very, very cool. We'll see if we can top that next week. Otherwise, if you're not a friend of mine on Facebook, what's wrong with you? Everyone else is. So friend me on Facebook. And that's where I'll start putting up more notices about things like this to guarantee that we can all get together and talk at the same time. And I will join you again next Sunday, same time, same place. Questions or comments, as always, put them below. Talk to you later. Bye-bye.